again, as we think about God sending his son Jesus to be born here as a baby, we want to follow in his footsteps. And so this song we're going to sing is probably a new song for many of you. It's just called Send Me, and it's just our response to God's great gift to us and wanting to be sent ones ourselves to our neighborhoods, the places around us, our workplaces, wherever God chooses to send us. Sing can be seated.
Hi, I'm Allie. I'm going to be reading Luke 24:36 through 44. As they were talking about these things, Jesus himself stood among them and said to them, "Peace to you." But they were startled and frightened, and thought they saw a spirit. And he said to them, "Why are you troubled, and why do doubts arise in your hearts? See my hands and my feet, and that it is I myself. Touch me and see. For a spirit does not have flesh and bones, as you see I have." And when he had said this, he showed them his hands and his feet. And while they still disbelieved for joy, they were marveling, he said to them, "Have you anything here to eat?" And they gave him a piece of broiled fish, and he took it and ate before them. Then he said to them, "These are my words that I spoke to you while I was still with you, that everything written about me in the law of Moses and the prophets and the Psalms must be fulfilled."
Elizabeth and John the Baptist. You'll hear a lot of scriptures as we continue for the next several weeks. But how do we allow this season of Advent, this holy disruption, begin to shape and change you? And I want us to be thinking about this thing right here, doubling down on doubles. I just like using the word D, so I thought I'd throw that in there. Double down on doubles. This is what we find in the scriptures today. We find Jesus warning the disciples about his coming. And he has all these references of, there'll be in twos, doubling down on doubles. And then he mentions Noah. And what do we know about Noah? He brought on animals of two of every kind, right? I just, thinking and processing, being curious, like, there's a lot of doubles. And when you see the book of Luke, which we just got done finishing as a church through the season, I noticed some doubles at the beginning and at the end of the book of Luke. You're probably familiar with the first doubles. It's kind of centered around the story of Jesus. It has to do with Anna and Simeon. When Jesus was blessed in the temple, there's two people that come to Jesus who bless him as a newborn. As he was of age to bring to the temple, there's two people that came to bless him. And I'll read a little bit of that. In Luke chapter 2, verse 25 through 32, we find a man in Jerusalem whose name was Simeon. The man was righteous and devout, looking forward to the consolation of Israel, and the Holy Spirit rested on him. So he was a man of faith. It had been revealed to this man by the Holy Spirit that he would not see death before he'd seen the Lord's Messiah, meaning he's not going to pass away before he sees who's the anointed one, who's the Christ. And guided by the Spirit, Simeon came into the temple. And when the parents brought in the child Jesus to do for him what was customary under the law, meaning Mary and Joseph were good mom and dads, doing what mom and dads do, got their appointments with, the medical, the dentist, the doctor, and for their culture, the Jewish law to come to the temple for Jesus' ceremony. So Simeon took Jesus, in his arms and praised God. And this is what Simeon says. And this is a stranger to Mary and Joseph. Perhaps they know this man, perhaps not, but let's just imagine they're not too familiar with one another. Simeon comes forward. Master, now you are dismissing your servant in peace, according to your word. He's probably talking to God here. For my eyes have seen your salvation, which you have prepared in the presence of all peoples. A light for revelation to the Gentiles and for glory to your people Israel. Now, before we get on to Anna, what kind of reaction do you think Mary and Joseph would have had to this man coming and holding their child and giving him a blessing? Not all the babies, not all the children got this type of blessing. This was like a double blessing. It was like an extra. To hear these words of man, he's going to be a light. He's going to be bringing glory to all. What kind of things do you think welled up in those parents? I mean, do you think their backs straightened up and they were proud? They already knew Jesus was special, and now it's getting kind of affirmed, right? So we see another person coming towards, because we're talking about doubles today. There was also a prophet Anna, the daughter of Phanuel of the tribe of Asher. She was of great age, and having lived with her husband 7 years after her marriage, then as a widow to the age of 84, meaning she was old, and she was dedicated, but what? To what? It says she never left the temple, but worshiped there, fasting and prayer, night and day. And at the moment she came and began to praise God and to speak about the child to all who were looking for the redemption of Jerusalem. At that moment, so at the moment when Simeon is gathering and holding the baby and giving praise to God and saying, finally, Anna too is coming and speaking about the child to all who are this is the one. And I think I would take Anna's word. If I'm seeing someone who's been in the temple day in and day night, fasting and praying, things that are not easy to do physically, but think about the spiritual authority that this woman had because of the time she spent in prayer and fasting. People were listening to what she had to say, and she was pointing to Jesus and saying, he's the one. Redemption is going to come through him. So there's all this hope building right here at the very front end of Luke. Hope is the highest in the beginning. Luke has these stories of these two people talking about Jesus and affirming already what Mary and Joseph had been told about Jesus, but now it's like just layering it on. Like, man, all these things are going to be happening through Jesus, all this hope. And I think this is true even today. Like, hope in the beginning is the highest. I mean, right? I mean, just think about, we're going to be coming up in New Year's in a couple months or a month and a half. And typically, we have all this hope of changing maybe habits and having these exercise and all these diets. And we have all these great ambitions, right? I'm going to work out every day for 20 minutes a day, and I'm going to eat right. And we have all this hope and all these ambitions at the beginning. And those kind of wane off after maybe a couple weeks. Or perhaps it's, when we're starting a relationship. You have all these great hopes for your relationship with a loved one, or maybe with a child, maybe it's a parent, and you have all these hopes for your kid at the very beginning of their life. Oh man, I'm going to make sure he's going to be a great man, a great woman. He's going to be a great father. He's going to be a great wife. He's going to be a great, fill in the blank. There's all these great high hopes. It happens. And some of you might be thinking, no, Caleb, I'm more pessimistic. I'm kind of cynical. I look at things glass half full, half empty, or you know what, that's not how it always is. The first thing you think of isn't always hopeful. Well, I'm going to argue with you a little bit. I'm going to push back. Because I believe when you were a child, when someone asked you, what do you want to be when you grow up? You had really high hopes. Am I right? Like when you were a child, if you're like me, you had this mind, this vision of like, oh man, I want to be a professional soccer player. And that makes sense. You kind of know my story. I love playing soccer. I still watch the soccer as much as I can and play as much as I can. I'm coaching my kids in soccer. And for me as a kid, growing up, I wanted to be a soccer player. We even talked to some of the team on the worship team, what they wanted to be when they grew up. And it was so varied. It was awesome. A doctor, a journalist, a bus driver. It was great. We have all these high hopes as a young age because we feel like there's nothing that can stop us. And whatever influences you at that time in those moments is very important to us. And then at some point along the way, not to say those hopes were wrong or bad or evil or misguided, it was just life begins to happen, and what shapes you changes you. And so over time, some of your hopes change, or maybe some of your hopes get hurt. And you don't necessarily are able to do some of those things you were hoping for. Your hope gets hurt. I mean, this is our bubble bursting, your dreams kind of not coming through like you thought. Now, I'm not saying don't chase your dreams, but I'm saying, how do you keep hope throughout your life? How does it be sustained? I'm sitting in the car talking with God as a teenager, and I'm saying, God, if this happens one more time, I'm quitting. I'm quitting. I had already had surgery on my knee for a meniscus tear, and I'd sat out for months and months of soccer, and, to teenagers, everything's very, exponential when things happen. And my knee got hurt again. I said to God, it's like, if it's torn again, I'm quitting. Nothing. Now, it was torn, but I didn't quit. How do you keep that hope even when things are hurting? I mean, you've been angry with God before, and perhaps you've bargained with God before. There was something that happened in your life and you were just angry because things didn't work out like you thought they would. Or you had hope for something and you knew God was with you and you knew God was opening doors for you, but then all of a sudden your hope gets hurt and you begin to get angry. Or perhaps maybe you start bargaining with God, like, okay, God, if you do this, you do that, I'll make it up here. I mean, hope is integral to our hearts. This is what the Proverbs say about hope. Wisdom literature. Hope deferred makes the heart sick. Have you ever had a pain in your heart when your hope gets crushed? You ever had something you were putting all your your investment in, both relationally, emotionally, maybe financially, and it gets crushed and your heart becomes sick. This is what I want to bring to us today. Hope needs help. If our hope over the long period of time, if we want to be followers of Christ over the long period of time, and I think many of you do, like that's why you chose to follow Jesus. Like you want Jesus to change your life, not just for 5 years or 10 years, but for the whole of your life. Like how do we keep the hope? How can we have the next 10, 20, 30 rest of your life be sustained? Well, hope needs help. Hope needs help. Jesus becomes a holy disruption, bringing hope. And I'm going to jump from the very beginning of Luke to the very end of Luke, where we see another set of doubles. Where we see another set of doubles of two people who are hopeless. They had lost their hope. This is where we find Jesus in this story. Jesus comes to two people and he asks, "What are you discussing with each other while you walked along?" They stood still, looking sad. Now, a little context. Jesus has died and resurrected, but these two men don't know it. Jesus comes and disrupts their conversation. He makes it so that they can't see him or they can't know who he is, and he begins asking questions. And because he sees them and he wants to ask them questions like, what are you talking about? One of those two men was Cleopas, answered him, and he says, "Are you the only stranger in Jerusalem who does not know the things that have taken place in these days?" Meaning, where were you when Jesus was crucified? Like everybody in town knew what was going on. It was the talk of the town and region. Everybody knew this. Jesus asked them, "What things?" Almost playing kind of naive, gullible, or not gullible, playing like, "Hey, let me keep asking, let me keep being curious. What things?" Well, this is what I said. The things about Jesus of Nazareth, who is a prophet, mighty in deed and word before God and all the people. And how our chief priests and leaders handed Jesus over to be condemned to death and crucified him. But this is where we find them being hopeless. But we had hoped that Jesus was the one to redeem Israel. That Jesus was who Simeon said, who Anna said Jesus was. We had hoped that was true. And besides all this, it's now the third day since these things took place. I mean, come on. It's been 3 days. Everybody's leaving town. Show's over. We got to go. We're hopeless now. Do you see how much has changed? It begins with hope. The highest hope is in the beginning. And now these two men are hopeless at the very end. Like, you've experienced this, where you've started with a lot of hope in someone, and then you get to the end of a relationship, and you feel hopeless. Like, man, there's no hope for this guy. There's no hope for this organization. Like, I remember at the very beginning, it looked like this, but now look at it, it's just dead. I mean, there's nothing we can do about this. This is where these two people are. This is what we find Jesus doing that brings hope. Jesus blesses food at the table. He spends time talking with them and teaching them what do the scriptures mean and what do they say. But all that doesn't reveal to them what hope is. It was when Jesus sat down and he began to do what he did with his disciples. He broke bread, he gave thanks, and he gave it to them. And their eyes, it says their eyes were open, and their hearts knew that it was Jesus. Or they asked, like, how did we not know it was Jesus? Weren't our hearts burning within? I love that. Weren't our hearts burning within? I want to encourage you. What brings hope? What sustains hope? Sharing hope. Sharing hope is sustaining hope. Have you been feeling like your faith has been waning, or it's been something that it's been hard to come to church on Sundays? and I know many of you are here, and you might not say it to me, but sometimes some Sundays are harder than others. It's true for me. There's some Sundays I don't want to show up. But if I don't show up, you're going to know it. Sometimes when you don't show up, you can get away with not knowing it, but we want you to know, we want you to be here. Sharing hope is sustaining hope. You feel like God's been far away from you. You feel like you can't hear his voice. You don't know what to do next. You don't know how to take that next step. Can I encourage you to get with someone and invite them to share hope with you? We had so many comments about people who were sharing their testimonies over the past couple weeks about how God has moved in their life and how encouraging that was for you. Isn't it encouraging to your faith when you hear how God is moving in other people's lives? In just a moment, I'm going to invite Allie to come forward, and she's going to share the hope that you helped her share with others. And I hope that it sustains your hope. Lots of hope coming around here. I want to encourage you. If we're feeling like, man, I'm feeling far from God, perhaps you need to buy an autobiography of a missionary who's been across seas, or who's been sharing the gospel to another world, or hearing their God move in their life, just of a Christian. Maybe it's someone you've known in our church, Jake DeShazer. Maybe you need to reread this life and story of Jake DeShazer, who's a person who's part of this church family, who could encourage you in your hope with what he did in his life. Sharing hope is sustaining hope. So I want to invite Allie to come forward. Allie, would you mind coming forward and then grabbing a mic there? Allie, a couple months ago, we prayed over Allie and her team because they were going to Nepal on a missions trip, and she's with YWAM, and she'll show you some pictures and talk a little bit more about that. But I want this just to be encouragement of how you got to be part of this hope that was sent out, because sharing hope sustains hope. And so, may it be an encouragement. Allie, would you just give us what do we say? A recap. A recap of how your trip went and what y'all do and what you're planning to do next.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Good morning. Christine, could you show that first picture, please? So this is the team. You guys prayed them out a couple of months ago. This was like one of our last nights in the city. We were at a pizza place. Pizza's very different there. Not as good as here, but that's my American mindset. Yeah, this is the team. We had a great time. It was hard. It was very difficult. It was the most outreach of an outreach I've ever experienced. Lots of cold showers, sleeping on floors. But we had Wi-Fi. I don't know how, but we did. Yeah, that's the team. And then the next picture. This is, so I'm just going to give a brief overview and then maybe share some like little testimonies throughout it. This is one of the temples we went to on the first day that we were there. So their main religion there is Hinduism, and then it's also Buddhism is mixed in that, because in Hinduism they have over 3,000 gods that oversee so many different things, and they pray for so many different things, but then in Buddhism, they have Buddha, and so in Hinduism, they're like, well, I already have 3,000, why not add another? So that's the only issue that we have with, like, also sharing the gospel with them, is that they're like, oh, Jesus can just, like, join my crew of people. And so it's usually a lot of, Jesus is the only way. There is no one like him. He is alive, and he is well. So that's that. So first, we were there for a couple days. We had, like, a little bit of an orientation. And then we went over to the east of Nepal, and that was called Elam. And we were staying at a school there called Green Hill Academy Christian School. And only about like 7% of the students were actually Christian, but the school was cheaper than the government schools, and so people would want to send their kids there. This is kind of the view. All of those clouds are covering mountains. It's the Himalayas. Like, that's where we were staying. So very beautiful. While we were there, we went further in, and we went to a village called Mabu, and that was the people group of the Limbu people. So there are 8 billion people in the world. It just was confirmed recently that there are now 8 billion capped. And then now there are 3.37 billion people that are unreached. So that means that they have little to no access to the gospel. They don't have churches. They don't know who Jesus is. So we got to be a part of a crew of people that distributed Bibles to an unreached people group. And they now have the story of Jesus. Something super cool about that is that there was one guy that we gave a Bible to, and we shared the gospel with him. He had like medical issues, and he had to keep getting surgeries and procedures done, and they weren't working. And it wasn't until he went to India and went to a Christian hospital that it actually worked. And when he was thanking the doctor said, "Do not thank me, thank Jesus." So he had heard of who Jesus was. We told the gospel to him again, and we didn't see him give his life to the Lord at that moment, but we have hope that he will someday maybe, we'll be able to see him in heaven. It'll be really cool. Also, sorry, I'm trying to think of what I was thinking about with him. Oh, that's right. So it was really cool because then the person that we were working with, they had a medical camp like a couple weeks after we had left that village, and one of his daughters came to know Jesus and was baptized. So that's super awesome. We have a sister. And then after we were done in the east of Nepal, we went back over to Kathmandu area, and we worked with a couple of different contacts during that time. We had like prayer walks, and we just kind of were in Kathmandu for a while. This is a view from our guest house. It's really beautiful, surrounded by mountains all the time. The Kathmandu Valley, it used to be a lake, apparently, and then they believe that Buddha pulled the plug on it and it drained it, and then the city actually grew up out of that, so we know that it just dried up. We worked with like a church planting ministry after that, and we went to a couple of different cities. Like we would go to the city and we would stay in the church, we'd sleep on the floor, have a lot of fun, and then we'd come back to Kathmandu, and then we'd go to another one. During our second trip, the first trip I was very sick, and my co-leader actually took care of the team, and this was a lot of time where we would go to houses and we would just pray with local believers. We would share a message, we would sing worship with them. We had no idea what they were saying, but we would clap along just as happy as we could be. And a little sidebar, we prayed for healing so much on this outreach. We prayed so much for people to come to know Jesus. We had the faith, but we never really saw anything, and that was like grinding on our hope. We were like, man, God, what are you doing here? Like, why aren't we like seeing this healing? But we, again, have the hope and the faith that God is continuing to do things. And we saw like so many other things, and like even now as we're reflecting and like looking back on it, we can see like where Jesus was moving. And so then the second village that we went to after coming back to Kathmandu, a lot of the team got sick, and so I actually ended up staying back with them most of the days and being a mom, making sure that they were eating food, drinking water, and taking their medicine. Thank you, Mom, for all that you've done in my life. And so the team then came back after ministry days and would tell me about what they did that day. And we got to go to another unreached people group. So in the span of 2.5 months, we got to preach the gospel to 2 unreached people groups. There are about 7,000 of them, and it will take a very long time. There's a really cool website. It's called the Joshua Project. They have like people groups of the day, and you can like log on to their website every day and see what the people group is of that day and pray for them. It's super awesome, Joshua Project. But yeah, so they like got to share the gospel with them. Gage, my co-leader, tells the story so much better, but basically they had expected that day to not really do much ministry. They like didn't wear the right shoes. They were wearing sandals. They didn't bring water because they said they'd be back by like right after lunch. And then the contact said like, oh, there's an unreached people group up there. Do you guys want to go? And they said, let's pray about it. And it's funny because the Lord didn't say anything. The Lord didn't say yes or no. And it's kind of like we we joked about God just kind of sitting there and going, "You really asking me? Are you really asking me if you want to go preach the gospel to these unreached people?" And so they went, and they got to preach the gospel, and it was awesome. I think that they also didn't really see any salvations. Like, they didn't see anyone, like, say that they wanted to come to know Jesus more and, like, a deeper relationship. But these are all, like, seeds that have been planted. When we were in Kathmandu, we were part of a youth conference, and the young people in Nepal are so on fire for Jesus. We got to go around and, like, pray in, like, a slum area, so that basically just means that they're in poverty. And a lot of the people that we were with were so on fire for Jesus, and they had so much faith. And even if when we didn't see, like, healing happen, we would move on to the next house, and they would have just as much faith as they did before. And a lot of times when we'd be reflecting, like, and doing debrief as a team, we would talk about how the young people of Nepal is the hope that we have, because they are the ones that are on fire and they're excited. And at this youth conference, we just, like, played games with them, like, after it was all done. But, like, you could just tell that they just had that, like, spirit of, like, I need to go out and I need to tell people. The laws of Nepal are you cannot, like, convert people into Christianity. And right now there are a lot of political things that are going on. There's a political party that's trying to come into power that wants to make the entire nation Hindu. No questions asked. Like, you have to be Hindu. I don't know exactly the results of that yet. But just be praying for this nation. They're full of hope. Like, in 2015, I was there when the earthquake happened, and it was hopeless. It was distraught. There was, like, destruction. But I've been able to go back twice now, and it has always been rebuilding and getting better, and just redemption is there, and there is so much hope. So I just have a quick challenge for all of you, because I thought about it when I was writing this down. In the youth conference, like, yes, the young people were, like, they are the next generation. They're the ones that are going to bring Christianity into Nepal. And so I just want to challenge you, if you know any young people in your life, invite them to church. Thank you.
I think we can help with that, right? Can we give Allie? Thank you. And I know Allie we've talked a little bit, she's been here for, 6 or 7 years, and she's going to be transitioning a little bit in her life. And so as much as we can gather around people in our family and support them and encourage them and share hope, because we've all been we're in different seasons of life. And sometimes the season of life we're in helps someone else in their season of life, because you used to be there, right? We all were young once. It's been a while for some of us. Speaking of young people, though, let's have our kids and wonderful volunteers, Kim and Dina, come forward. Can we appreciate our kids and our volunteers? And as they come forward, our worship team will just get settled, and they're going to explain a little bit of what they're doing.
All of you over here. They're never shy in the classroom, you know.
Guide me in your truth and teach me, for you are God my Savior, and hope is in you all day long. Psalm 25:5.
Okay, what we're learning this whole month is the Advent, and today is hope. You could tell from the memory verse that La Sambo sang. He's getting ready to go up and sing. Talked about today was hope, and so every week we'll be bringing in ornaments that we make that represent which part of Advent we're celebrating. And like I said, today is hope. We taught the children today about Jesus being that wonderful, amazing counselor, and how we are so hopeful and have great lives and hope in Jesus. And it's been wonderful to hear them learn about that today. So that's what we did. We are lighting the candle, and today is hope.
So the kids are going to stay and hang out with us while we all stand up with our benediction. So would you stand with me? Sharing hope sustains hope. So I want to encourage you. You might be someone who's going to sustain someone's hope this week because you're going to share something with them that God has done in your life or God is doing. Or maybe you need to just invite someone to do that for you to sustain hope because God is so good. And so we're going to end our benediction with God is so good. And Doug and Marceline are going to lead us out.
All right. We're going to sing this in a bunch of different languages. You're welcome to try some of the languages or just keep singing it in English as well. But what a great taste of what heaven is going to be, where we believe all tongues and tribes and nations and people will gather together worshiping at the throne of God. We'll be saying how good God is at that point as well. So let's sing God is so good. God is so good. God is so good. God is so good. He's so good to me. In Swahili. Mungu yu mwema.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you. And I look forward to next week as Zach Jackson is going to lead us as we talk about love. So God is so good, and he is full of love for you and for your neighbor and for the you that is yet to sit by you on Sunday service. So I want to encourage you, Christmas Eve service, if you don't know this already, is at 6 o'clock on Christmas Eve. That's December 24th. And we want that to be an opportunity for you to engage with your neighbor, to invite them to hear the story of Jesus. And may it be a holy disruption for them as it has been for us. So this week, hope sharing is hope sustaining. We'll see you guys next week. God bless.